Well, all right. Hello again, all you beautiful people. It's great to have you again for the podcast. This is the Snake72. This is podcast number 5. So, still holding up with the 72-hour theme. That may change in the near future, may go down to 1 a week, but still kind of trying to figure that out. There may be another fusion type of podcast that we start seeing as well. So just trying to manage the time that I have. Got a day job and some kids, so as of right now I can't podcast as much as I might like, but I stay busy. I definitely stay busy. Got a really good, interesting article for us today, subject for us today. This is for the parents out there that have kids that are going back to school. Our kids are going back to school tomorrow. For the little ones, the older ones went back to school on Monday. And, this is just some suggestions and some anecdotal stuff that I pulled together just in some research that I've been doing. So, with everything going, what we're going to talk about first is a couple things. First thing is a lot of people are going to be stressed out or have been stressed out with the homeschooling, and understandably, many of us are working from home, trying to manage working from home with, doing the schoolwork with the kids throughout the day is kind of a turmoil, I would say, and it's a challenge. And then there's another set of individuals or parents that are dealing with having to go to work for necessary jobs or, essential jobs. So, number one, thank you for going there. And number two, I'm not sure, how to best manage those situations. I'm covering some of the topics in the following podcast, but this is more designed for those that are going to be there working from home or, have some type of alternative work schedule or stay-at-home parents that are, working with their kids all day, that type of thing. So I will have another podcast that's going to go out to the parents that have children that are going to school. So that's going to be the next up in the queue. So, but we're going to jump right into it. And what I wanted to emphasize here is, just kind of thinking back before COVID, we probably had grown, all of us had probably grown accustomed to a certain cadence throughout the day of our kids in school and, the parents, we would be at work or, whatever ventures that we were doing to pay the bills. And, by the time everybody got home, 5 o'clock, maybe 6, maybe later, there's just not time. And I know a lot of you are feeling what I'm saying out there. There just wasn't time to really, spend a lot of time with your family just because of the way that life had been structured. And, when you're trying to fit meaningful experiences in with homework and housework and dinner and playtime, it gets crazy. And our lives with our family really just boil down to a handful of hours every day. What I wanted to throw out there is let's try to look at this as at the silver lining of this. And now more than ever, we have an opportunity to fully engage or more engage with our kids than that same old cadence that I was just describing. We have an opportunity to take much more of an active role and in our child's learning and their development. So, and on top of all that, we can infuse a lot of those lessons with life lessons. So that education can be the academic part, and then there's some life lessons that only really a parent can teach, their kid. But again, due to that way that life had become, there wasn't a lot of time to do it. And by the end of your day, the kids are tired, the parents are tired, and it seems to fall by the wayside. So I think that these lessons that we have the opportunity to teach our children in this capacity, this type of structure, aren't possible. They were not possible from the typical teacher in the classroom or typical school experience. So let's embrace that as much as we can. We're doing all we can to keep our kids safe, and let's not lose sight of that as well. So another thing that I wanted to just kind of share with you that I thought was really cool was an article from back in the 60s. As far as I've been able to narrow it down, it's from anywhere from 1965 to 1969. Comes from a man named Gary C. Myers. So Gary Myers was the founder of a magazine that I remember in my childhood called Highlights, that was filled with a lot of activities and different cognitive exercises that really did a lot for us as kids. But in any event, they ran this segment of his. It was called the Parent's Prayer, and it ran in an article when the newspaper used to print. It was in an article called Dear Abby, and I believe its origin was from Chicago. So one of the history or the historical points about this article is that it originally aired back in the 60s. Back in 87, when it ran in I believe it was the Chicago Tribune, it was requested by a reader that had read it back in the 60s and requested it 20 some years later, just because they thought it would be useful to the parents today. And I sometimes wonder, did that person see that there may have been the need for it, like the changes that happened in the 80s, 90s, etc. So I also thought it would be cool for me to kind of further that tradition. I got this article from my mom, just kind of rummaging through her stuff, and she's passed away now. But it's just kind of cool going through her artifacts and kind of furthering this. So I'm just going to read it to you from the same article, and I'll show you the article also. I thought it was kind of cool. Here's the article. So super old. Going to read it here. It says, one of our patrons would greatly appreciate a copy of the poem you published years ago. It begins, "O Heavenly Father, make me a better parent." She said you had read it to your column about 20 years ago. So they responded, they found the article, and they reposted it. So here's the prayer, and I wanted to also put a disclosure out there. Again, I mentioned this in my earlier podcast. I'm an agnostic. I'm not a super religious nut or anything like that. But I do think that this is a really cool article, and I think it can help at a time that we find ourselves in. So let's do it. The article says, the prayer says, "O Heavenly Father, make me a better parent. Help me to understand my children, to listen patiently to what they have to say, and understand all their questions kindly. Keep me from interrupting them, talking back to them, and contradicting them. Make me as courteous to them as I would have them be to me. Give me the courage to confess my sins against my children and ask their forgiveness when I know what I have done is wrong. May I not vainly hurt the feelings of my children. Forbid that I should laugh at their at their mistakes or resort to shame and ridicule as punishment. Let me not tempt a child to lie and steal, so guide me hour by hour that I may demonstrate by all I say and do that honesty produces happiness. Reduce, I pray, the meanness in me. May I cease to nag, and when I am out of sorts, help me, O Lord, to hold my tongue. Blind me to the little errors of my children, and help me to see the good things they do. Give me a steady word for honest praise. Help me to treat my children as those of their own age, but let me not exact of them the judgments and convictions of adults. Allow me not to rob them of the opportunity to wait upon themselves, to think, to choose, and make their own decisions. Forbid that I should ever punish them for my selfish satisfaction. May I grant them all their wishes that are reasonable and have the courage to always withhold a privilege that I know will do them harm. Make me so fair and just, so considerate and compassionate to my children that they will have genuine esteem for me. Fit me to be loved and imitated by my children. O God, do give me the calm and poise and self-control. I think I think any of us, if we really think about everything that's been happening, not just the COVID stuff, but just look at our society, and I dare say that it's not just something that's, refined or restrained to this country. It's happening all over the place. And I think that, change has to start somewhere, and often big things start with very small beginnings. So I'm hoping just to lend some inspiration and some awareness, and to open up that conversation to be socialized a little bit more about maybe better ways that we can find peace with parenting. I think it's kind of influential with some of the aspects of society that we're dealing with today. So, but this is not a podcast about that. So, I do want to move on into some suggestions for the parents that are going to be schooling their children with them from home. The first one starts out with the night before each day. There are many occasions where, dinner can be made the night before with thought of leftovers for lunch the next day. And that just makes it easier for the larger part of meals can be prepared in, faster ways, like an air fryer or in the oven or in the microwave. So that kind of removes the element of, not having to prepare anything. Just makes it kind of easy. And often if you have kids that are old enough, they're going to be able to prepare that stuff on their own. So another plan is to get the kids learning materials and their outfits for the next day. Get them ready the night before. I understand that they're staying home. Even us as parents, are working from home, and we may not even leave the house all day. But I think it's an important thing for both parents and kids to get up and to get prepared for the day. It's not a good practice. I don't feel it's a good practice for us to get up moments before we go to work and then just roll into work. And same for the kids. I think that it would be best if they could have a day, a morning, and some conversation, some dialogue between the parents and the kids, or between the kids themselves. Maybe they could get some creative time so that they can draw or, watch something that is along an educational avenue on television. There are a lot of different things that can be done, but I just don't think it sets them up for success if they just wake up right before school and get onto a computer minutes later, or shortly after eating. Give them maybe a half hour to an hour that they can, just kind of wake up and, have some time that they can eat and, be comfortable before they start their school. So if there are older siblings, you'll also want to coordinate with them and their schedules. So, you'll want to look at your work schedule if you're working from home. The older kids will want to look at their school schedule and just kind of put your heads together at what times might be mutually available, for each party. And if you're able to, I think the older kids may have may provide some support there. Obviously not every scenario or every family scenario is ideal for that, but with a little bit of structure and organization, it's sometimes amazing what can be done. And we're going to touch on that a little bit more, just on how to encourage and reinforce some of that behavior. We want to also, when you're looking at your schedule, you're going to be looking for meetings, deadlines or project contributions that you can plan your day around. Sometimes there's not any break in the action that you can plan your day around, and you may only have a lunch or some breaks, but there are ways to kind of maneuver through that where your meal planning has it to where you have foods that you can eat while you're working, and you can isolate the times of your break times to actually do things that are engaged with the kids' school. So understandably, that's not going to work for every scenario, but for the majority of them, I think it probably will. The other thing is we want to have a conversation and some open dialogue, with your work, some open dialogue with the kid's teacher. Both kids, or all kids. There may be multiple schools that are involved there, so it's always best to try to lay out the situation and the schedule, timeline with all of the teachers that can kind of contribute in some way. Sometimes there may not be any ways that they can make any amendments or any changes to the schedule, but just their awareness of what you're trying to work through is often helpful. So that communication between parent and teacher is more important now than it's ever been before. So don't forget that, and try to lean on that and lean into that. Another thing that we want to do is throughout the day, you want to ideally start your day along the school schedule, and most of them will start in the morning and go into the early afternoon. I've found with my kids, it doesn't work well for me to let them have a chunk of time in the morning where they don't have school, and then I'm trying to start school in the late afternoon or sometimes in the evening. It's never really worked well for me, and I'm not saying that it's not going to work well for anyone, but I do think that it works best in the daytime, in alignment with what's going on with the school schedule, because you'll find that's when the teachers are most available. There's other students that they may be able to interact with, and it just most closely matches their school day, because they're going to be going back to school at some point, right? So that's a good idea to consider as well. Let's keep in mind that they're probably going through things just like we are as the parents, and maybe to more of an extent. So let's try to have some games or toys that are prepped for them when they've earned them, and try to have an official recess or break in the learning activity that's built in there, so that they always have a structure and it's consistent there. Coordinate with your kid's teacher on what their recommendations might be, and work together on constructing a work schedule and a school schedule with their breaks. It works out best for the kids to do all the school in the daytime, like I mentioned, but if that's not possible, I just wanted to touch up that it may be more feasible to do an alternative schedule, like at night. So those are conversations that I just wanted to encourage between parent and teacher. Stuff that we've tried before when we've had to and didn't have coverage for the kids, and it's not ideal, but it's definitely something that can be done. So in these times, it's difficult. I understand. We just got to do the best that we can with what we got, and sometimes that's going to be school at night. This one's really important. Reach out for help. So, I think that we often lose sight that there's a whole bunch of us, either friends or family or just other parents that are struggling through this just the same. So let's lean into the network of family and friends, sometimes just publicly, to let people know in your community. Many of us are out there on social media and neighborhood apps that are clinging together as communities. So I'd be willing to bet that if you expressed your frustration or your challenges, or needed some help or someone to share some of their experiences, you'll have several parents respond, with a ton of insight that you may not have thought was there. So remember the human connection, and that we're really strong together. We need more of that these days and with our generations to come, so let's be part of that change. Find ways to celebrate successes with the kids on managing their school throughout the crazy times, and just kind of acknowledging the heart of what's actually going on here. Let them know that you're proud of their strength and their hard work. Where you may have older kids that are helping manage the younger kids, I think it's important to publicly reward them and reinforce their importance to the family. This will be good for the older kids, just to kind of, keep them motivated and to give them meaning. And this will also be good for the younger kids to give them inspiration and to have, respect for their older siblings that are, managing school and trying to help them as well. So remember to also do things for yourself. And the successes you have in managing all this stuff. Wherever you can, maybe buy yourself something that you've wanted but haven't gotten around to. You've earned it. have something yummy delivered, or work with the older kids so that you can binge watch something, whatever it is that you do. Maybe you want to take everyone out, for fast food, or, go in the backyard and roast some marshmallows with your music blasting. Whatever your thing is, but don't forget to do it, because it's important too. For those that don't have children, so this is, don't have children, or if you have children but are older, that are already out of school, you have a really important opportunity here to help your friends and family with managing through this pandemic situation. If you have the time, reach out to them and see if there's anything that you can do to help before they ask for it. So it's often just someone to talk to, and to vent that we need as parents, but sometimes you might have opportunities to help out with the kids and come over and help with school, or to bring lunch over. There's so many little things that can make a difference that don't seem like they're significant, but trust me, as a parent that's trying to manage through all this stuff with more than just a couple kids, it's definitely helpful. Even just the conversations, or just having something mailed to the house, or having food delivered to the house. My support circle, a lot of times isn't doing humongous things, but the things that they do are so huge. They're small, but the impact is so huge. So just something to consider there. And for those that have, children that are going back to school, remember that there's going to be another podcast that comes here about that situation, and just some best practices and some research that I've been able to unearth there. This will take us to the end of the podcast, so I just wanted to get a short one out there. Next 72 hours, we're going to have podcast number 6, and again, that looks like it's going to be for parents that have kids that are going back to school, and just some ideas. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Wanted to give a shout out before I go through for Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Definitely appreciate all the platforms and housing all these videos, as well as the audiences there. Couldn't do it without you. Don't forget to thumbs up or thumbs down for me, however you feel about it, and any comments, that would always help. And on to the next one. You guys stay safe and smart out there. I wish you all the best.